the mic and he's ready to go. Noodle on his left, Jess on his right. Hey, hold up, don't start a fight. He's got you covered with all the sports. Don't fret, he's wearing shorts. It's time for Wake and Jake in the morning, Wake and Jake at night. Jake sucks.
Woo! What is going on, Bakers? Welcome back to Wake and Jake, November 7th. Holy smokes, we're now in that time of the year where it feels like Thanksgiving happens and Christmas is on its way and nothing matters, and you can lose 2 months pretty easily in the baseball off season or whatever you're doing in life. I mean, I just found out that ESPN has a segment called Big Papi's Places that looks like 20-minute videos on ESPN Plus that can't wait to dive into those later. Looks like Peyton's in one. Looks like they're talking about Babe Ruth's biplane. So we'll circle back at that later on. The Houston Astros won the World Series this weekend. Saturday night, Game 6, Tyson, Jackson, Jordan, not Gordon. That's it's Gordie Howe segment we're working on. Yeah, Phillies went up 2-1 in the series. They had the juice. Their offense, I said it about, you could say it about St. Louis, who they beat on the way here. You could say it about the Padres. You could say it about, well, so the Phillies beat the Braves. Yeah. That the Phillies were kind of outgunned in every aspect except the lineup. But that lineup was so good that it outdid everyone else's defense and starting pitching and relief pitching. And I guess there should be an asterisk to starting pitching there. I mean, Nola, Wheeler, and Ranger Suarez gave them a lot of real efforts. And the story that comes out of it, and I think it's the part that teams are going to start leaning into more with, baseball in small samples, bullpen and defense. The Phillies' defense ended up being really good in these playoffs, or solid, I should say. Their bullpen ended up being really good for most of this playoffs until the very end, which may be playing those wild card games and kind of having a plan to use their bullpen, and the overuse may have ended up being the factor, or I think they ran into the better team. When we talked about the American League this year, for half the season, it was a two-team race. It was the Astros and the Yankees. The Yankees had one of their worst months in the past 30 years of Yankee baseball. They ran into the injury bug hard, and you don't want to lean into that too hard as a Yankee fan because they were outgunned anyways by this Houston team. I think roster-wise, philosophy-wise, and then the injuries. I mean, two guys I've often compared, DJ LeMahieu and Michael Brantley, they were both out this postseason. Although DJ LeMahieu might not have had to been out. That's a whole nother topic. But they were both out. Andrew Benintendi ended being a massive blow to the Yankees. Their bullpen ended up thinning out a lot, but it was guys that you anticipated. I mean, Mike King got hurt early on.
There's guys that have been out. Like, sure, you look at the total list of relievers they were missing, and it's a very long list. And there are a couple blows at the end.
You thought a Chapman or maybe a Zach Britton could have figured itself out. It did not. That made the Yankees' pen a little thinner than it was. That being said, it kind of wasn't their problem.
Had enough, it seemed like.
The Houston Astros, their lineup can go toe-to-toe with Philly's lineup, and we ended up seeing that at the end. I mean, when you talk about top sixes in the lineup where you can really do damage and, at the end of each team's lineups, I don't know if we're going to see another 2009 Yankees, that just... even those earlier Yankee teams, some of the spots they had Soriano hitting, like, old school Yankees, him hitting ninth and things like that. I don't know, especially as the shift gets banned more and there's more defense and the catcher position in general. That top six of your lineup is really where I think teams can do damage, and we saw it with Schwarber, Hoskins, Realmuto, Harper, Castellanos. Boom. For Houston, it's the guys you know. It's Altuve. You now know Jeremy Pena, if you didn't. Yordan Alvarez, if you didn't really know who he is, you should fully know who he is now. Alex Bregman, Kyle Tucker, and then Yuli Gurriel was in there. He ends up getting hurt for that final game, but he had a really nice World Series leading into that. So the Phillies' strength that got them past the Braves, the Cardinals, and the Padres got matched by Houston. And then the problem was their starting pitching, Framber, Javier, Justin Verlander. McCullers, speech-wise, won. They outdid Wheeler, Nola, and Ranger to a degree. Their bullpen was lights out. They literally set the record for best bullpen ERA in the playoffs. And this is a time that bullpens get used more than ever. I think the team they beat was like the 77 A's or something. And bullpens just weren't what bullpens are now and how they get used. So one of the lines I was saying during the live streams, and thank you to everyone who was joining us during those live streams. When you talk about Houston, I think it depends if you're talking to a loose baseball fan or someone who's in the weeds. I think if you're talking to someone who's really a diehard baseball fan, which if you're listening to this, you probably are, I think it starts with their pitching, truly. During the year, they were second in starting pitching ERA. They were first in bullpen ERA. As you go back through these Houston teams, the pitching is always there. It's the constant. The hitting and some of the names come and go, but the pitching is just relentless. Their hitters, Yordan Alvarez should be talked about as the best hitter in the league, if not the best young hitter in the league, if not the best lefty hitter in the league. However you want to dice it up, he needs to be in the conversation. Jeremy Pena threw himself on the scene better than kind of any rookie ever. Puts in a full season. The stats end up looking around league average, 22 homers. The on-base percentage was .289 on the year. I know we live still in an OBP world a little bit. He fully broke out in the playoffs, and he's 25, and he got the full season of reps under him that he was ready to go, and he was the problem in that Houston lineup. If Seattle had gotten a young Jeremy Pena out in his first playoff game, they would have won that game. It was literally 2 outs in the ninth. That brought up Yordan. He did his thing. Similar thing happens in that final game. The defense gets a little, not as sexy, but I said it a lot on the streams. Alex Bregman, if he came up in a different organization, he would have played a lot of shortstop. I think it was 2019. He played 500 innings at shortstop. We looked that up. He can play third base with pretty much anyone. I think the Arenados and Chapmans have a slight nod on him, arm strength-wise. But otherwise, he goes toe for toe with the best. Yuli Gurriel, look at some of his numbers. When he first joined Houston, he was a shortstop. He played all over the place. He happened to make himself a top-tier first baseman. Jose Altuve, when he came up, he played a little short. He's become a great second baseman. Kyle Tucker wins Gold Gloves. Chas McCormick made a catch that won them the World Series, or partially helped win a World Series game. Yordan, they play with the Crawford boxes. He plays a better left field than you think. Really good straight line speed. Even when Brantley was out there. They do enough in that left field. They take advantage of the fact that they have an easy left field to play so they can put someone out there.
Might be limited by range factor. Left field matters a lot less. Just looking at Jordan, I'm sure he throws hard. I'm sure the arm strength is there.
I don't think he has a weak arm. I don't think that's even possible. And all of that was circling back to the Houston bullpen. Presley, Abreu, Neris, Stanek barely gets used. Montero, how good he was for them. They made trade deadline moves. I mean, Will Smith ended up not really being too big of a factor. Trey Mancini, yes and no. In that final game, he gets a moment, but up to that point, he was bad. Vasquez, that's the one, man. I circled it as more of a death to Boston. I didn't know how Houston would truly use him. He ends up having a massive insurance RBI. He caught the no-hitter. Maldonado, who becomes more of a legend in his own ways, that hit by pitch. Vasquez gets an RBI single in a game-clinching World Series game, and he caught a World Series no-hitter. So, yeah, man, this organization has run laps around everyone. I always say it, going back to the scandal. The whole reason they ended up in the scandal, and it's the whole topic, and it's the bar convo, and, I don't know if people are ready to have it. It's their whole philosophy was let's increase around the edges enough that we can get an advantage everywhere. And I think they do that at the trade deadline. I think they do that with their prospects. They've done that with their pitching, whether it's advanced camera angles, whether it was, when the sticky stuff was going around. Anything that was happening, they try to make themselves basically the industry leader. And that's how they ended up getting themselves in trouble. Because if you go back to the Yankees and the watch, or you go back to, the Red Sox and what they were doing with runners on base, and teams were doing stuff. I think the Twins, those years that the Bomba squad, the years they were doing stuff, they were involved in the video game. A lot of the elite teams were doing stuff with the video technology. Houston took it to another level because their whole thing was increase on the margins and be the best, and how can we get to the top level with it. A lot of the teams went a step too far. They went a couple steps too far, and that's the whole thing. But that is now 5 years ago, 2017. Like, we're moving on. And a lot of these guys are 25 and weren't involved in that. Jeremy Pena, 25. Kyle Tucker, 25. Let's see. Javier, 25. Luis Garcia, 25. Brian Abreu, 25. They do it on every level. And our boxing guy, Dan Canobio. Passing.
Football, we'll get there later. Frank Reich's fired.
Adds up. Boxing guy Dan Canobio said he was laughing listening to Talking Yanks because he said one of the best things I said, we were talking about Donaldson coming back. And, Donaldson's old. He had a bad year offensively. Bringing him back, would it be a reclamation project or would it work? And even if it does work, what's the best case? And I said, does this sound like anything Houston would do? And the answer is no. If Houston had a 37-year-old third baseman who struggled all year, would they try to bring him back to tap into something? No. That's not increasing on the margins. That's hoping and praying. So, congrats to Houston. They get their parade. In a way, it validates everything. I think we're already seeing Alex Bregman. He needed that for his persona and who he is and wants to be. I've already seen him mixing it up on the Twitter sphere more. And good for them. Pena's a star. Altuve's awesome. He's my size. He's one of the best second basemen ever. Jordan is, again, look at the stats page. It's nuts. 1 OPS in 2 out of 3 full seasons. Kyle Tucker is all world. If he hit free agency today, he'd be a $300 million player. They are so good in every aspect of what they do. Justin Verlander's going to win the Cy Young. They got him to come back. So with that, congrats, Houston. We're moving on to the offseason. We're going to have some fun offseason content. And we already had a signing, and that signing is brought to you by Ridge Wallet. Ridge Wallet. Got the Ridge Wallet right here. Bang. I can toss this bad boy around, and nothing is going to happen. It holds up to 12 cards plus room for quiche. Started carrying cash on me. Hate the feeling of not having cash. If we're just being,
you need a little bit.
If we're just being real about it. Made out of carbon fiber and burnt titanium. Do I really know what that means? No, but I know that it's strong, it's durable, and it's got a lifetime warranty. So the Ridge team is so confident that you like it, they'll let you test drive it for 45 days, and you can send it back, full refund if you don't love it. Check out ridge.com/JohnBoy and use code JohnBoy. Get 10% off your Ridge wallet. You get a 45-day test drive if you want. Ridge.com/JohnBoy and use code JohnBoy, 10% off. Wrapping up the baseball, there was one big signing, Edwin Diaz. I think we could do the baseball as one thing. Edwin Diaz re-signs with the Mets. Good for the Mets. You know, it was in a question mark area. Every time I saw Jeff Passan, he said, flex. Whoops. Every time I saw Jeff Passan, he said Edwin Diaz is going to sign for 9 figures. He does. He gets $102 million, 5 years from the Mets. He had one of the best closer seasons ever. Timing is everything in free agency. Good for Edwin Diaz. I know his struggles when he first went to New York were so emphasized. Outside of that, he's been incredible. Even going back to that lockout year. Good for Edwin Diaz. What he did, his arm talent is special. He is 28 years old. He broke into the league young. It's a ton of money, and being a reliever is so volatile that there's going to be times it doesn't work, and it's going to sting. But if you're the Mets, you locked up a big asset. Remember, they traded Kelenic. Everyone freaked out about that. Kelenic's still figuring it out. They lock him up. He's going to be there. I will say this. There are going to be times when they will be set up for failure because you pay him so much money. Look where the Yankees just landed with Aroldis Chapman. That there's going to be chances and times that that's going to burn you, especially when some of the other organizations who are operating differently and, we're starting to learn who's doing it right. Cleveland Guardians, I saw my guy Fuzzy tweet this. They locked up Emmanuel Clase to an extension. And again, this is all different. Clase is young. He's 24. But they locked Clase up 5 years, $20 million. Where Edwin Diaz is making $20 million a year for the next 5 years. Small market, big market, that whole song and dance. Happy for Mets fans. They'll get their guy back and they can focus their offseason elsewhere. That's a real number, especially for a closer, but with what Edwin did this year.
Literally broke the record.
Passing the eye test, it's all of it. But yeah, that's the Yankees just learned investing so much money in your bullpen can backfire quickly. Zach Britton, Aroldis Chapman. Even I know Chad Green made money this year. He was still an R, but it's a lot of money in the bullpen.
For where you are, and for him not ever being a closer, he was doing pretty well. Otto.
And don't even be shocked, Emmanuel Clase. Would it be nuts if he closes the next 3 years and when he starts making $6 million with team options for $10 million? Guardians trade him, and it's still a crazy value. Don't be shocked if that happens. That's kind of the baseball for now. We'll be getting into some off-season stuff as it sneaks up. We got more guys opting out.
Always some news.
MLB free agency starts Thursday. Is it time to hit up Foolish? We will see.